Jazz has always been one of those characters that, for some reason, I feel is overlooked. I think it's his lack of consistent media presence that creates this image in my head. I know he's not an ignored character. He's just not as prominent as I'd expect him to be. But recently, I was organizing my collection, and I realized I actually own a lot of Jazz figures. So, let's take a look at some of my favorites.
If you like this content, you should consider supporting the channel.
That was awesome, Motormaster. Thank you.
And if you don't support us, I will head straight to your home, take my sword, and drive it into your...
Okay. That was great. Let's get some lunch.
I could really go for some sashimi.
When I was very little, Jazz was hands down my favorite Autobot. And who could blame me? He's super cool. Loved his look, loved his voice. Just a great character. But his toy was well out of availability when I was getting into the game, and so I couldn't get him. My parents do love to tell the story that the only way they could get me to stay in preschool was because they found a Jazz in the toy box. But I have no memory of this, so I can't confirm the validity of this anecdote. The first Jazz figure I ever got was the Pretender version, and as simple and silly as the toy was, I loved it. Till my sister peeled the windshield sticker off out of spite, then colored it back in with a Sharpie, telling me it was just as good. Yeah, I have no regrets letting the Decepticons attack our Barbie Dreamhouse that day. In 2007, we got the first live-action Transformers movie, and one of the things that got me really hyped for it was the triumphant return of Jazz. Now, we all know how that actually turned out, but during the build-up to the movie, I was excited. And I have to admit, he actually had one of the best and arguably most faithful designs of all the Autobots. His original figure was also pretty cool for the time. Here we have the reissue of it in his G1 colors, and it works for me. The jet black contrasts amazingly well with the stark white car parts, and I love the signature red and blue highlights. It's a surprisingly posable figure, and really evokes a modernized, all but abstracted take on the classic G1 look. His arms are probably the biggest flaw of the figure, since they are just flappy panels, but it is fun to attach the ridiculous rifle barrel to his hand and imagine him sniping his enemies with it. The car mode is fantastic too. He may not be a Porsche anymore, but I really like the Solstice, and I think it works for him. Jazz may have received an unceremonious death in the movie. Spoilers, I guess. But his inclusion led to his return to the small screens in what is arguably one of his best incarnations in Transformers Animated. I love this design for Jazz. Like the movie, it perfectly evokes the original, but still gives us a fresh take. I do wish the white plastic was a little less soapy colored, but the other colors are fantastic, and I dig the head sculpt. He also comes with the coolest nunchuck weapons made out of his exhaust pipes. This was a shining example of how fun Transformers Animated was. His transformation is neat, and that car mode is just a wonderfully ridiculous exaggeration of a sports car. It's fun, it's silly, it's animated. But G1 Jazz wasn't lost to time either. In the Reveal the Shield lineup, we got one of the most accurate updates to the character to date. For the longest time, this was my Jazz. Everything from the colors, the sculpting, the posability, the cool speakers that could flip out over the door wings, and that absolutely sick-ass blaster made this one of the coolest Jazz figures to date. The only downside for me was the transformation was kinda fiddly. But in retrospect, I have started to appreciate it over the years. And I like the vehicle mode a lot, as it's a pretty amazing looking sports car. Honestly, after this figure came out, I couldn't comprehend them topping it. Then, the Studio Series hit. 86 Jazz is a nearly perfect figure. He does suffer from transparent plastic, but as I get older, I do lean more into my figures being more for display than for play, and this guy looks incredible. The colors are crisp, the design looks very animation accurate, and other than the transparent plastic, it's a pretty fun transformation. I liked it so much I was happy to get the G2 Dorito version as well. And I'll be honest, I'd gladly buy it again in Ricochet colors too. Jazz is one of those characters that I feel is timeless. I wish they'd do more with him, but when he shows up, you just know he's going to do it with style.
Well, you could just move on to the next video, or you could click the subscribe button. Yes, go on. He needs the confidence boost.